Museum. My name is Ed O'Keefe. I'm the CEO of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library Foundation, and as I look out today, it's pretty amazing to see all of the people who are responsible for this incredible event, the TR Library coming to North Dakota. I think Theodore Roosevelt would have really enjoyed today. I think he would have liked this weather. I think he would have liked the hardiness of everyone. I will note that the rain and lightning that started this morning came from South Dakota, which I think perhaps was their jealousy at knowing that soon North Dakota will have a competitor to Mount Rushmore. So South Dakota tried, but they're not going to hold us back. It did remind me of some words that Theodore Roosevelt said. 140 years ago in 1884, so 140 years ago this year, Theodore Roosevelt arrived just over the bluff. He arrived at the train station here, and he was a devastated and depressed individual. He lost his wife and his mother on the same day in the same house, and he came to the Badlands to recover. He found and lived what he later called a strenuous life, and he returned to North Dakota many, many times over his lifetime. And one of the times he returned, he said this in 1910, "To you, my fellow citizens, the people of this state, I have watched your growth into and through statehood carefully. Many of those in this audience are neighbors of mine, and from now on, as we go westward, I will come to more and more places in which I know people until I come to a town where I know everyone, where I have been on the ranch with them, worked with them, shipped cattle with them, and know them as only you do men with whom you work. There are two ways of getting to know a man: by working with him and by fighting with him. And there are a few men here with whom I've had both experiences. So naturally, I take a particular interest in you, and my heart is rejoiced with the prosperity in this state to see you're growing steadily, growing into greatness. This great prairie state with its wheat and its cattle, with its products of the farm and the stock ranch, I am proud of you. I am proud of your products, and your best products is your men and women. So to the men and women of North Dakota, from those who have given to this project, from those who have constructed this project, thank you from Theodore Roosevelt. As I said at the beginning, Theodore Roosevelt said, believe you can and you're halfway there. Folks, we are halfway there. You are seeing behind you the progress of almost a year of construction. And I want to note a special moment. We are putting together today the placement of a steel beam over what will become the In the Arena exhibit. We all know those words from that famous speech in the arena. And this is True North Steel. And we today are celebrating a safety award for True North. They have had a completely incident-free construction to date. And so congratulations to True North and all the construction team here. To our benefactors, the Roosevelt family, the stakeholders in this project, our board of directors at the TR Library, we are immensely grateful to all you have done. You're going to hear from some of our key stakeholders here today, beginning with someone who believed in this project when pretty much no one else did. He has been a steadfast and faithful companion to the TR Library from the very beginning. We walked this site with him in 2020 when there was nothing up here but U.S. Forest Service land. And our great congressional delegation, working with Governor Burgum, managed to acquire this land from the U.S. Forest Service, had to pass a federal act of Congress to be on the land you're on now. So I really want to thank both Governor Burgum and our great senators for making this possible. We would literally not be here today without them. We've also had a really tremendous relationship with our tribal nations here in North Dakota. The first event that we did here on the land was a land blessing with members of the Roosevelt family and the tribal nations that share geography with North Dakota. This is the land that once belonged to the Mandan Hidatsa of Rikra, and I want to acknowledge that we too owe a debt of gratitude to the original stewards of this land, the MHA Nation. And with that, I want to introduce you to our steadfast companion, the faithful and ever-believing and optimistic, grateful Governor, Doug Burgum.
Morning, everybody. What an incredible day. Let's give it up for Ed O'Keefe and the fantastic leadership, Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. What a team. Wow. Today is a day of celebration. It's also a day of gratitude. When I look around in this audience here today, if you're here today, you've had something to do with this project happening. You've got ownership in this. And as TR would say, if you're here today, you're in the arena. You're making this thing happen. And that's one of the beautiful things and one of the things we're grateful about North Dakota, because North Dakota is a place where we get things done. So I want to just say again, this historic milestone that we have today, it's one of many that we're going to have as this great project moves forward. But certainly we should remember what we're doing here is we're on a journey to create the best presidential library in the nation. There's 14 others. This will be the best. This will have the biggest impact on generations to come. And it's going to be a library worthy of carrying the name of our 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. Yes, this is a great day for North Dakota. It's a great day for Medora, for Billings County, for Dickinson, for Beach. It's a great day for the United States of America, because all that will come here will draw inspiration from that life that Roosevelt lived, the courageous and bold life. And people will remember, and they'll say, why is this presidential library in North Dakota? And they'll learn about his time that he spent here, where he famously said he would never have been president if not for his time in North Dakota. Because as Ed mentioned, on that fateful day when he lost his wife and his mother on the same day in the same house on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 1884, he went west. And he went as far as the tracks would go, and that brought him here to the frontier of Badlands. And it was here on this land, the land that you see behind you, the land that's now the Theodore Roosevelt National Park or Forest Service land. It's on this land that he transformed himself. When he transformed himself from an Easterner who lived a sickly life, transformed himself into a Westerner, a cowboy, a rough rider. And with that, he went on to transform our nation. And he did that in so many different ways and so many different roles. But truly, our nation's had a lot of great leaders, but we're setting out here to create a Presidential Library Museum for one of the most intriguing and most impactful figures in our entire country. And wow, we need TR more than ever. For those of you that are supporting this and building this, know that we're not just building a building. We're building an institution that's going to be framed around citizenship, leadership, and conservation, the three pillars of what TR brought. And on conservation, arguably the most important of those pillars, he was a naturalist as a kid doing taxidermy when he was young, very young, single digits. He was a hunter and outdoorsman. He went on to influence things like the creation of Boone and Crockett and many other conservation groups in our country today that are preserving wildlife and land, all hail back to his early work. But Roosevelt famously said that conservation means development as much as it does preservation. And I think this is a lesson that our nation has forgotten. This is the individual that put away 240 million acres of land for our country, created the U.S. Forest Service, established 5 national parks, 18 national monuments, 150 national forests, and 51 federal bird preserves. And in the process of doing that, it wasn't like we're going to put it away and never set foot on it. He understood that this land and these resources was the balance sheet of America. You all heard and hear every day people talking about, the liabilities, the U.S. debt. We need to start talking about our assets. And our assets are held in the land and the mineral and the forest that Theodore Roosevelt put away. And we need to develop those to make sure that we've got a secure and prosperous future in our country. And it's also fitting that as we stand here today and when you walk out the front of this amazing building here and you look to the land behind you, you'll be looking into the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. There are 63 national parks in our country. There's only one that's named after a person, and that's this one, and fittingly so. because it was here in his experience around Medora and his Elkhorn Ranch, which is now part of the national park as well, that the term the cradle of conservation came, because this truly is where it all began, right here. This is a place where for hundreds of years to come, people will make a pilgrimage to say, where did this philosophy come? A philosophy about conservation that literally led to the creation of parks and preserves around our world. And it's here because of the hard work of so many people today, and so many people at the local, the state, the federal level, the people that are here that are actually building this incredible facility, that we're on track for a grand opening on July 4th, 2026. And that's a significant date because it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. That will be a day of celebration. It'll happen here. But the opening of the 15th Presidential Library is also going to be a magical and special day. We know that when you open a presidential library, all living presidents are invited. People have asked me, you're going to have fireworks on July 4th, 2026? I said, if we have all living presidents here, we won't need any fireworks beyond what's going to happen. Anyway, you can imagine all that. But when we look to that grand opening, we know that there's going to be celebrations in Boston and Philadelphia and in Washington, D.C., but this is one of the only celebrations in the heartland of the country. It's going to be right here. And so a part of that America 250, this is a very big deal. And congratulations to the library for being named to that. As I close out here, I want to just share some gratitude, and it won't be enough time to cover everyone. But this library, projects that are this audacious and this incredible and this large, this kind of vision doesn't happen unless there's lots of ups and downs, lots of people fighting, a lot of people that had to believe in the early days. And there's so many people that are here today that are part of that, the partners, the TRPL board members, their leadership, everyone who's dedicated themselves and their time and their resources to help make this happen, knowing that how important it is to create a place that will inspire leadership, action, and self-discovery. One of the catalysts that kicked this thing off was the dream that we needed at a time when people didn't believe that North Dakota could do big things, is that we needed a catalyst to help people understand that. And that catalyst came from our great state legislature. It was in April of 2019 that they, after a long debate about is this something we should be doing or not, that they approved a $50 million endowment for operations and maintenance for the library. And again, that $50 million has never left the Capitol. It's sitting in a trust fund there. It was there as a challenge grant to say, this $50 million endowment will only exist if the private citizens of this state will step up and contribute $100 million. A 2-for-1 match on a challenge grant. Well, we know what happened. Generous donors have stepped up, and many of them are here today. And the TRPL team has raised over $270 million since that initial challenge was delivered. We do have a number of the legislators that are here today that are still serving in the legislature. I'd like to recognize House Majority Leader Mike LaFleur from Dickinson, Bob Martinson, Cindy Schreiber-Beck, Craig Hedlund, Glenn Bosch, Mike Nathan, Todd Porter, Pat Heinrich, Don Lawmore, John Nelson, Anna Novick, Bill Tweed, Keith Kempenik, Senators Brad Beckett, Sean Vita, Scott Meyer, Jeff Barta, Sean Cleary, Randy Burkhart, Ryan Braunberger, and Jana Murdahl, and former Senate Majority Leader who played a big role in this, Rich Wardner. And then also I know Thomas Beadle, who's now our treasurer. He was in the legislature then, as well as Michael Howe was the senator then. He's now our Secretary of State. But let's give it up for all these legislators, past and present, that made things happen here today. And on that, I know there's folks that have contributed to this that want to be anonymous. Some of our largest donors and some of our best supporters don't want to be mentioned, but I do want to have you know that they're all out there. And one of those that doesn't like to be mentioned, but is a wonderful story of how it came apart for this in the legislature, where he played an important role, but he came to a meeting and he brought his 2 grandsons with him. And he said, if this project's going to happen, it's not about me. It's going to be about them and about their generations. And I'm happy to say that those grandsons' names are on this beam, but you don't know who they are. So you're going to have to search through 1,000 names to find them. But anyway, it's exciting that we've got people that are thinking generations ahead, because that's the impact we're going to have. We've also got a number of folks from North Dakota, families here in North Dakota that have done incredible work. We know that some of them are here today, the Shields, the Thorensons, the Chambers, and many others that have made such significant gifts. But I want to provide, there'll be plenty of opportunities to thank donors in the future, but I also want to say there was another big catalyst that came in January of 2023, and I had the honor of announcing that at the State of the State in front of our legislative thing. But he's here today along with his daughter Hillary, who serves on the board. But big shout out, the $50 million cash gift from Harold Ham gave this thing a boost of confidence that that would have never happened. Harold's book is called Game Changer. If you haven't read it, you should. It's important, but he was a game changer, not just in building the U.S. oil and gas industry and helping improve America's strength and independence, but he was a game changer in this project. So thank you, Harold. Thank you, Hillary, for all you do. And thanks for all, let's give it up for all of our donors that have made such a big difference here today. You know that we've got one of the great congressional delegations in America. These guys are, they are at every, I'm telling you, National Guard, they're leaving to go overseas, they're there. They're coming home, they're there. I'm at a ribbon cutting, they're there. The groundbreaking, they're there. These guys are there. And thank goodness they're spending more time in North Dakota than they are in D.C., because here they're getting stuff done. But with Senators Hoven, Senator Kramer, and Congressman Armstrong, what a team we have. And these three now have done all the things they've done for our state in their past service and other positions, but now representing us as our CODEL. They've introduced the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library Act. This will provide $50 million in one-time federal funding and authorize the federal government and its agencies to enable the sharing of incredible Roosevelt items that are currently held in the National Archives, the Smithsonian, and other places to be displayed here in our library. This hasn't been done yet. I know they're going to get it done. They always get it done. So let's give it up for our congressional delegation. They're going to make it happen. And in closing, I do want to say, I could just have to share this because this is how it works within us. They come to my events like a groundbreaking, and then they talk about what I'm going to do in the budget to get passed at the state level. So I thought I would just return the favor here and talk about what they're going to deliver coming up, because it was just 2 weeks ago at the Hector Field. I think you guys were pushing me for $60 million for airport funds, right? Okay, he's putting in 90. Now we like it. He's upped it. That's 1.5 times. But anyway, so these guys are going to try to get 150 million. Did you hear that? Not 50, 150 million one-time funding. 2 for 1. We're going to get more than what we got here. So you guys hold them to that. They'll make it happen. But anyway, Roosevelt in his time faced enormous social, technological, and political upheaval, not unlike we have today. He was the first president to fly in a plane, the first president in a submarine. He was the first sitting president to actually ride in a car. And so he was someone who was willing to jump in, get in the arena, face the challenges of change. And he really set us up for an American century. But he did that because of the core values that he brought every day: daring greatly, thinking boldly, caring deeply, and living passionately. And even 100 years later, those values are more relevant than ever. So to all of you today, thank you all for being here today. Thank you for daring greatly. Thank you for thinking boldly. Thank you for caring deeply. And thank you for living passionately and committing to this incredible project. It's going to affect not just your children, but generations to come. Thank you for your leadership, your generosity, your caring, and your courage. As TR once said, far and away the best prize that life has to offer is a chance to work hard and work duly. And I can tell you that anybody that's involved with this project, they've worked hard, and it's been work worth doing. Thank you all. We're grateful for all of you. Enjoy the day of celebration. And on behalf of all the ranchers in Western North Dakota, thank you for the rain. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Burgum. Always inspiring words. And as Governor Burgum said, we have an amazing congressional delegation. I mentioned before that we are literally on this land because of the work they did in 2020 to pass the Theodore Roosevelt Land Conveyance Act. I want to welcome to the stage first our senior senator from North Dakota, Senator John Hoven.
Thanks, Ed. And
thanks to all of you. Today really is about the donors and all of you that have contributed to this magnificent project. Obviously, I have to, Governor, if it's okay, I'm going to start with a little gratitude. Yes, I'm going to start with a little gratitude. Thanks for your vision to make this happen. Without Governor Burgum coming up with this concept and pushing for it, it wouldn't have happened. It's his vision. Let's hear it for our governor and first lady and their leadership here and their vision on this project. Actually, I got here yesterday, and it's because we're working on the South Loop. Any of you that tried to drive the South Loop for the last 5 years, notice you can't make it all the way around. But the good news is by the end of this year, certainly by the start of next year, you can make the loop. Yeah. The Restore Our Parks Act, which is a piece of legislation that I worked on along with others, certainly Kevin and others. We secured funding for all the deferred maintenance in the parks across the country, $47.5 million to fix that loop. It's been a 5-year project. When you go out there, you're going to be amazed at the structural engineering to build that 6 miles on the sides of gulches and hills that you can't believe. It is a marvel, and you're really going to enjoy it. And again, I start there because there's so many things going on in the park and now in this crown jewel. It's really unbelievable. And so I've got a special guest I'm going to introduce them. So Bert Frost, kind of make your way to somewhere where they can see you, because I want to introduce you and Nancy. Don't clap for me yet. Nope, not yet, Ed. Not yet. But I've got the regional director for the parks out here so that he could go out and see Luke. He's been working with us on it. And our new acting park supervisor, Nancy Finley. And here's Bert. And it's not just, and Nancy, it's not just they're out here and we're working with them on finishing that loop. There's also the ponies. Have you heard anything about the ponies? Anybody heard about ponies? Right? Well, Park Service was going to send the ponies packing. And so we kind of went to work on that. I was able to include some language in the Park Service Appropriations Bill that said, no, we'll keep horses here commensurate with the time of Gov. Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, that's what we want is horses here. And so we included that in legislation and passed it. And then I called a friend and, that phone a friend thing. Well, that's Bert Frost. He's a regional Park Service director out in Nebraska, covers this whole area. But when I was governor, he and I worked together on the elk management plan in the park. Have you heard anything about that recently? No, of course not, because it works great. And that's what we're going to do with the ponies. And so he's out here, he's working on it. And interesting that, hang on, in a minute. Now, Nancy Finley, she's the acting superintendent here at the park now. And interestingly enough, just a little fact to it, I'm sure it's purely coincidence, but she worked in North Carolina where, guess what? They have horses in the park, and it works very well. I think she's the right person to come out and work with us. So now if you want to clap for me, you sure can. Thanks. So I'll just kind of wrap up here with, we actually, Gov, you're right. There's 3 pieces, we mentioned 2 pieces of legislation. There's 3 pieces of legislation, 2 of which we've already passed. The first one we passed was the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library Conveyance Act. It conveyed 93 acres, the ground that you're standing on right here, from the Park Service to the Theodore Roosevelt Library Foundation. Without that, we probably wouldn't be standing here. I don't know, we might be standing somewhere else, but we wouldn't be standing here. And so we did pass it. It was not easy. Ed O'Keefe, was it easy? It was not easy. But I certainly want to thank, so I put the bill in, and I certainly want to thank Senator Kramer for his hard work on it, and Congressman Armstrong, and Governor Burgum again, because we put conditions on it. And that is, you've got the grazers out here who live and work out here, and every day there's such a huge part of everything that goes on. So we required that there's no net loss of grazing acres, okay? We also required that the Library Foundation has to work with the local county and the local folks. So you've got, that strong relationship. They have to maintain the grazing agreements. And I'm going to add one thing, because this goes in the ongoing category. We got to do more work on the roads out here and make sure that our grazers have access to the ground that they stood. Okay, and that's ongoing, and I hope you all will help with that. So that passed in December of 20. The next thing we did pass. We actually, in the appropriations bill for Interior last year, 24, that's Park Service, we directed that the artifacts from Theodore Roosevelt's presidential time in office, those artifacts which are now stored at the Smithsonian Institute, those can be displayed out here at this library. That's passed last year, okay? Now, that's not just a win for us guys. That's a great win for us, right? It's going to be in the TR. That's a win for the country. Because right now they're, I don't know, in the basement of the Smithsonian, and no Americans looking at them. We're going to get all those Americans, a lot of folks from a lot of other places to come look at them right here in this great library. The third piece, though, you're right, we're still working on. And I got the little money challenge thing. We picked that up, didn't we, Ken? I sensed it. It was there. I sensed it. So I've introduced Kevin's co-sponsor along with Blumenthal from Connecticut and Heinrich from New Mexico. So we'll get it. And it's $50 million, authorized $50 million for this project. All you legislators, you're great. We love you. And thank you for initiating that $50 million. We get to tell those guys in Washington, well, by golly, if our legislature could step up for TR, Congress sure ought to be able to do as well. So God bless all you legislators. But ours is different. Ours is modeled after the Abe Lincoln Presidential Library Act that was passed in 2000. Ed, thanks for the good research. And I got to call out some of the other folks that have, Ryan Bernstein, where are you, my former chief? Ryan Bernstein's been an absolute lion on this. He's somewhere else. Ryan, thank you. We have it so that by the way, it's structured after the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, same model, $50 million on a match basis, and then we've moved it through the full Energy and Natural Resources Committee now. I hope that we'll have market up. I'm on that committee. We'll mark it up next month, and Kevin, end of the year, right? We pass it by the end of the year, or we don't come up with this. So that's the one of the three that we haven't passed. We're working on. Okay, all of this is great, but it comes back to the donors. I saw Linda Pancras and Eileen Shield, and I tell you, Harold, it's going to get done, and it's going to get done really well with those two, steering the ship. They are awesome. I worked with them before, and they never say whoa in a horse race. I'm telling you that right now. But it's about you donors, all you donors. You're making it happen. Today's about you. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Hoven. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Senator Kevin Cramer.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I picked up on that subtle message from the governor. I'm glad I'm not on the Appropriations Committee, but I know who is. Governor, you're always so grateful, and that's contagious, and we're grateful for that. But I don't think we can stress strongly enough about the importance of your vision. I know there are a lot of visionaries out here, but Scripture tells us that without vision, the people perish. But without this vision, this project probably wouldn't happen. But it's not just the vision, it's the work behind it. One of my favorite quotes of Roosevelt's is one that I just shared, by the way, John, with a couple of our friends in the Senate. From his autobiography, chapter 4, if you haven't read it. If you don't read the whole thing, at least read chapter 4, Life in Covenant, where he talks about the heart of life. And he said, ours is the glory of work and the joy of faith. And Governor, vision without work is just a dream. You put in the work to convince a lot of people to come along. And we're just really, really grateful for that. So I also say, when I first got to Congress, the librarian of Congress was James Billington. And do you remember James, librarian Billington? He was appointed by Ronald Reagan. So for me, I was, a new kid from North Dakota, and I'm meeting this guy that was actually appointed by the first president I could ever vote for. And he said, I know there's this work going on in North Dakota. with the, because we've been taking a lot of our books, a lot of the Roosevelt books, and we've been digitizing them, and we've been sending them to the state and to the library, and all this stuff going on. And James said to me, he said, we're all in on the Roosevelt Library because, why, Ted? Because he's the most prolific writer in presidential history. And Woodrow Wilson's pretty good at it, right? And Madison and Jefferson each have a building named after them in the Library of Congress. I think there's a third building that doesn't have a name, but I'm not sure. We'll look at that later. But I'll never forget that moment as a freshman on a retreat, probably my first month in Congress, when the Librarian of Congress said, "That's a vision worth building." So if you have any trouble getting anything out of the Library of Congress, let me know. We actually have a little more to say about that than the archives. Although I will say this, and this is for all of you, if you ever visit Washington, John and I do a lot of things, tours and lineup tours at the White House and the library and other places. But one of the most enjoyable things I get to do is when somebody wants to see, and they're interested enough to see the archives. The archivists love it when the senator calls and says, "I'm bringing people over. Please show us what no one else sees." They love it because they're the stewards of this stuff. And they have to get down on their hands and knees and dig through boxes and pull out dusty artifacts and whatnot. And they'll get what we need them to get. It takes a little more work for them, and it takes a little more work for the member. But then we go over there and we get to touch some of this stuff. So if any of you are ever looking for something special, when Levi Andrews was here, we did it with his family, I guess last year or earlier this year. Very special, particularly for young people. I might go down just a little different path. Some of you know the most fun you can have at work is being North Dakota Tourism Director. Best job I've ever had. Didn't get paid much, but I saw the musical 14 times one year, and loved every moment of it. And one of the questions I still get, oftentimes, I get it a lot of times on national television, is what exactly is the difference between North Dakota and South Dakota? And I always say, well, we have oil here, and they blew up a perfectly good rock and turned it into 4 presidents' heads. But I'm just telling you, this is real, what we got going on here. This is the real deal. And when you talk about what you were talking about earlier with regard to the road, John, in the loop, you're right. When you see it, you will see an engineering marvel that will enhance the integrity of that infrastructure that will allow visitors, travelers, the safety and the comfort of a really nice ride. But more important than that, the care and the engineering that has gone into ensuring the integrity of the natural landscape. It was so important to Roosevelt. The very reason we have that park is probably even more impressive. And so we hold that. And by the way, one of the most impressive things they had about this place, in my view, about this whole construction, is not even just the beams, which are impressive, but the fact that the care of the topsoil. The first thing I noticed when I came here was to see that pile of topsoil. They used to be on the Public Service Commission, thanks to Jim Hogan. And I carried the reclamation portfolio. I understand grasses, warm weather grasses, right? Hot temperature grasses, cold temperature grasses. Not just everything grows everywhere. And to go through that process, that is probably the very first scientific process to ensure that the topsoil of this area will remain the same as it was when Roosevelt was here. And that it will be restored in other places where there's maybe still some work to do. But just the last thing I want to talk about, and I'm still working on the Treaty of the Seas, trust me. But I have this very peculiar position in the Senate where I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and because of rankings, I am the ranking member of the Sea Power Subcommittee. Makes perfect sense. We have a monument right here in North Dakota. We're the center of the continent. So why wouldn't I be the head of the Navy? So, but anyway, but when I talk to friends, my colleagues, if they don't get the Roosevelt Rough Rider guy, they get the Roosevelt Navy guy. And so the last 4 years, I've been bringing a group of Washingtonians, stakeholders, out to Medora. The last couple of years, it's been about 50 to 60 of them. And so when they were here a week and a half ago, thank you, Ed, thank you, Robbie, they lined up a tour for about a couple dozen of them who really wanted to see this city. And one of them that's been coming the last 3 years is with Huntington Ingalls. Huntington Ingalls, for those that don't know, make ships. And one of their prized ships, of course, is the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Beautiful carrier. So after this last trip, a week and a half ago, I get a call from Ingalls saying, Senator, we have a really impressive, large model of the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Would you like it in your office or should we give it to the library? And I said, I'd like it in my office until you give it to the library. So we're looking forward to delivery on that in a little bit. You guys, it's hard for an old tourism director, for somebody who grew up in this state, who's almost as patriotic as Doug Burgum is from North Dakota. This really is a big change. It really, truly is. I don't think you can exaggerate. Just as you cannot exaggerate the impact that Theodore Roosevelt has had on this area, the state, the nation, and yes, the world, Doug, you cannot exaggerate the impact that this facility will have on the state. A week and a half ago, when Joe gave us a tour, Joe is a great guide, by the way, if you ever want to take a great hike around Medora. But of course, while he doesn't do it as Roosevelt, he might as well. It was a 7-year-old nephew of a executive from one of our largest financial institutions in this country who showed up for that hike dressed as Theodore Roosevelt, just as he did for Halloween. And if you doubt the timelessness of the story of Roosevelt, you should meet Henry, the young 7-year-old from Virginia who came all this way and wore his outfit so he could go on a hike with Theodore Roosevelt. Thank you. God bless you. I can't wait for the grand opening.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to call up one final speaker. Craig Dykers, whom you heard from on the tour, is one of the founding partners of Snowhetta. I just also want to take a moment to thank our incredible design partners, JLG, the architect of record here in North Dakota. Of course, Confluence, who is working on that soil, on the landscape here. Thank you to Confluence. And last but certainly not least, you're actually not on our site at the moment. You're on the site that belongs to J.E. Dunn, the construction team that owns this site until they turn the keys over to us. Thank you very much, J.E. Dunn, for hosting us here today. We really appreciate all the work that you are doing to make this possible. So now I will call up Craig Dykers to tell us a little bit about what we're going to witness in the beam ceremony itself.
Very much. Thank you. Wonderful. Please, momentarily. Well, thank you. I do represent a large group of people, and I'm honored to speak on their behalf. This is a very important milestone, especially from the perspective of an architect. Many of you may ask why? Why now? It's not finished. Why are we waiting till later? Well, this actually is a milestone that represents the passing of one of the most dangerous stages of construction work, the completion of the superstructure, the large steel and wood beams that you see behind me. But it's also important for other reasons. Oh, is that a flute? Sounds like it. I've got the pipe piper back there telling me, hurry up, hurry up. Another reason why this celebration is important is because it goes back thousands and thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, to a ceremony that has been repeated over and over again across the world. And this tree branch that I brought here will explain that a little bit to you. For tens of thousands of years, people who have built things, even in prehistory, they honored this moment in time. So it's very special to everyone who has ever built something. The first reason why this tree is important, and you may have seen at construction sites as you're traveling, sometimes there's a pine tree tied to a construction crane, or maybe out in front of a construction shed. And so why is there a pine tree there? It's not Christmas. Well, that tree represents thousands of years of history, back to when everything we made was made out of wood or bamboo or some kind of wood-like structure. And on this day, and during the days of construction, they would place that tree there to honor the earth, who has given us all the resources to make this building possible. Everything you see that is here today comes from Mother Nature, comes from Mother Earth. And so the branch and the tree represents our privilege to use those materials to create these things that we're making. And honestly, that celebration goes back tens of thousands of years, repeating this day over and over again. So in a sense, it's not about this moment, It's about that continuum throughout history. Another thing that is important about this day, that is very, very important, and that is that the tree and the wood represents the courage of those people who are actually building the structures. More important than anything else in many ways. We may have visions, we may have dreams, we may raise money to make it possible, but without those people actually building this thing, it never becomes real. So we have to honor them. I know there's a lot of people from the construction teams out here, so if you quick raise your hands and say hello, and if you're standing next to one of them, shake their hand. I'm sure it'll be rough and difficult. But it is important to notice that although this is an extremely safe construction site, as we heard earlier, construction is inherently dangerous. And so you always have to respect that danger, because danger can happen when you're just not looking or paying attention. Everything that you see, everything in this building has been touched by a human hand, sometimes 20 human hands or more. And every time they touch something, every piece of steel, every piece of wood, every piece of electrical wiring, every piece of steel tube, every welding machine has a human hand that's having the courage to do it for the rest of us. So that's what this tree also represents, this branch. And normally it's placed on a beam or a structure that's being hoisted. I'll just put it in front, and it will represent that heritage that we're all here for today. So thank you very much for giving this moment to honor that tradition that goes back tens of thousands of years. Thank you.
Okay, so one bit of logistics before we move to the beam signing and the placement itself. For those who have not signed the beam, we're going to have the governor and the congressional delegation sign the beam momentarily. And then for those that have not signed the beam, please come forward and sign it before we will begin to lift the beam and actually place it on site. Obviously, it's warm and we've been out here a while, so if you do not choose to stay for that part of the ceremony, that is perfectly fine. We are going to have food and refreshments available at the Jaden Terrace, just right across the parking lot where the pitchfork fondue happens. Food and refreshments at Jaden Terrace. If you'd like to stay for the placement of the beam, it will probably take about 15 to 20 minutes after everyone has concluded signing. And so with that, I want to make sure that we didn't miss anybody, and I think we did. 1 second.
Thank you, Ed. To close out, I want to just say a couple words of gratitude, but also leave you with a thought. This is a milestone, but this is the beginning. It's not an end. It's a milestone. And when the building is completed, it's not the end. That's the beginning. Because they said this is an institution that's going to spawn other ideas and other great things. What's happening here to have something of this magnitude happen here now, think of it like $400 million of capital coming in a couple of years. That's more than 4 times as much as what's been invested in Medora in the last 60 years. And so this is an order of magnitude change. But for the legislators that are here, I want to make sure that they know that one of the honors as an outgoing governor, you put together the budget, and that budget that's going to be coming to you in December is going to include more stuff to help support the local communities here. For Water Commission, we got Andrea Travnik is here leading that. I know that our leadership is here. Ron from the NDDOT is here. Bill Peterson, I saw signing the beam up here from the North Dakota Historical Society, and Cody Schultz is here from Parks and Rec. And when people talk about, oh, we got to respect the locals, you know, one of the biggest local landowners is the state of North Dakota. When you're driving by some of the most underutilized land that we have in our entire asset portfolio, it's called Chimney Park. You just drove by it on the way up here. We have an opportunity with a master plan to drive more revenue, more assets, more development in a smart, thoughtful way by improvements to the Historic Society, to the Sully Creek State Park, what we can do for road infrastructure and water infrastructure that helps everybody in the community, every small business, everyone will benefit. So there's an opportunity to keep investing. The legislature, you've given us the programs, the flexibility, the Destination Development Fund, a number of things. You gave us tools last year. Those have been put to work. Expect to see more of those coming in the budget we're going forward. So gratitude to that. It's a whole of government approach. And also one other big government North Dakota thing is North Dakota State University working on with Confluence on the grassland. We got Kevin, an expert on warm and cold winter seas. I mean, they've categorized hundreds of different natural native grasslands. They're going to be restored here. We've got Dickinson State's been working on this thing for a long time. The overall NDSU university system. We have an opportunity to have our university system have their logos in this library, not Harvard. We'd like to have their logo here because I guess TR went there before he decided to become a real man and come west. But anyway, you get to say that when you went to Stanford. That's okay. There's a little rivalry there too. Okay, but anyway, thank you. Then the whole of government approach, all those agencies, leaders, legislators, thank you. We can keep moving this thing forward. This is a beginning. It's not an end for sure. And so again, gratitude to all of you for being here for this celebration, for this milestone. Keep dreaming big. This is the beginning, not an end. Thank you again to the donors. Thank you, Ed, and your leadership. I'm turning it back to you, Ed. But one more time, give it up for all of yourselves for being in the arena. Way to go.
All right, thank you. If we can have Governor Burgum, the congressional delegation, along with the leaders of Snohetta, J.E. Dunn, Confluence, JLG, please come on forward. We're going to go ahead and do the ceremonial signatures if we're going to capture.
It's also not great, but it's better than nothing. Yes, I'll roll. No one else is rolling.
For those of you who have not signed the beam, we now invite you to come on up. We've got two groups of pens available on either side. If you have not signed the beam, please come up and do so before we'll do the ceremony and place the beam. Come on up.
That crane right there. Since we're waiting. Um, what is the bigger problem here? I know I have to do it. Yeah.
All right, if you've not signed the beam, please come on up and sign the beam.
Yeah. But, see, this is fun. Brave, yes, handsome. It's good. Get off this thing. Yeah.
Last call for signing the beam. If anybody has not signed the beam, please come up and do so now.
Like your mic? You're good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin to prepare to lift the beam. In order to do so, we need everyone except for the congressional delegation and the governor. Please be behind the benches. Everyone needs to be behind the benches for a safety perimeter. So if we could please have everyone move behind the benches except for we're going to do a last photo.
Walking.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take one last photo. You might notice a camera that you would have seen in Theodore Roosevelt's time. In Theodore Roosevelt's time, they took tin types or wet plates. And we have Shane Belkowitz, a Bismarck-based photographer who uses the exact same technology that Theodore Roosevelt used in his time. He's going to be taking a wet plate photo of our congressional delegation, Governor, and Craig Dykers here on the site next to the beam, which will go into the North Dakota State Historical Society and be there forever. We have also been taking photos and portraits of individuals who've been involved in the project, and those two will be kept as a part of the record at the North Dakota State Historical Society. So if we could have our congressional delegation and governor head on over here. Okay, he wets the plate, he runs to the camera, he places an actual glass plate into the camera,
Yes.
and then the congressional delegation and the governor need to be still and not talk for upwards of 2 minutes. So the crowd can say whatever they want, but the governor and the congressional delegation cannot speak or it will ruin the photo. This is going to be interesting. Okay, when you see Shane come running back, I'm going to set down the microphone and we're going to stay very, very still. That's a great idea. Yep.
Because Shane's gonna look it. He's gonna huff it after he gets it to his development room in his truck. to see it. Yeah, his legs and tush. I have trapped wasps in it.
Here comes Shane. Here comes
He's
Shane.
hoofing it.
Hello.
Everyone stay out of it.
Wonderful. You did it. All right. Everybody was still and quiet for 2 minutes. Fabulous. All right. Thank you very much. Again, if we can have everybody step behind the benches. If you do not wish to be here for the actual placement of the beam again at the Jayden Terrace, we now have food and refreshments. You are more than welcome to head over to the Jayden Terrace anytime. When you do go to the Jayden Terrace, there is a place to deposit your helmets and vests and glasses. So please, at the same spot where you entered, please return the helmet and vest, and we will now begin the placement. Oh, wait, we need
Oh, come on.
30 seconds.
Get him? Hey,
Oh,
Are you-
Rangers too, man.
are you allergic or anything?
Governor, we need one more thing. Right up here near the American flag, I think. We're going to need you to do
Ouch.
this. And there you go. Here go. Go when you're ready. Right here. I'm right here, right in front of you. Steve, we are good to go. Yeah!
Nice to know. Why? Number. That is wild. We'll be able to look at it. See. They say you would be pretty fine. Jobbed my dog. The camera's up here. When was placed.
If I find out. You can hear that thing from here. You can hear this. Big old too. Yeah. It's unstable. Yeah, on his like fleshy under arm something. They're not that big to them. That yeah, I'll stay. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. Again, there are refreshments and food in Jayden Terrace. Please remember to return your helmets and vests as you exit. And remember, when you walk over, when you're in the arena exhibit in the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library in 2026, you can look up and you are a part of the continuum of history. Thank you so much for being here.